So fellow hosts and humans, we're back with Westworld Season 4, Episode 1, and as always, this episode, or the first episode of the season of course, was very, very, very interesting, and already I've got the freaking creative theory flowing ideas in my mind that will require your input down in the comments below, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys comment not only in today's episode, but hopefully you come back for the weeks we've got ahead breaking down this season. So I do encourage you to subscribe right off the bat, because here we get in deep with Westworld, and yeah, this episode was really enjoyable. I felt like it set things up nicely. It's very intriguing knowing where characters are at now compared to at the end of Season 3. I'm gonna shut up now, get straight into the review and breakdown, but just before I do, I would really encourage you to like this video if you do go on to enjoy my deep dive breakdowns. We kind of like to talk a lot here about stuff, so videos tend to be on the longer side. So if you are down for that, subscribe, like this video, help me get out there in the Westworld algorithm, on the forever perplexing YouTube algorithm. I swear they've got a Rehoboam behind there somewhere. I'm telling you, it's forever trying to keep me out of it, but I'm gonna break my way in. Just you wait. Now, of course, this season picks up with a shady William. Or should I say, first of all, we have some cartel leaders, and I like the way they kind of portray them in the present day world. They're just really wondering why William, this old man William, who is, as we know, quite a big name in the real world, needs their help. They're just kind of like, his business is illegitimate, why would he need us? He's buying, and this is an interesting line, most of the old city in the outlying areas. The land is mainly worthless, but I don't understand what he's doing. Obviously, this is all a larger part to Heloris's plan. Yes, we call the Charlotte Hale Dolores Heloris. It's just so much easier. But regardless, this is mainly what she's doing. She's the puppet master, and we're going to get more into that with what's going on with Christina, Evan Rachel Wood's new character. But here, first and foremost, she is looking, or should I say, William, on behalf of Heloris, is looking to buy Hoover Dam because of what the cartel leaders have within it. Now, don't forget that the trailers do show some interesting things, such as the valley beyond being at the location of Hoover Dam. We even see Old Man William looking at it, which means the Old Man William you see in the trailer is a host, but also likely the same version as the Old Man William at the very beginning of this episode, because don't forget, Old Man William suffered quite a bit of a hand injury. Here, he seems all good and dandy. As we know from the trailers as well, it looks like despite what happened at the end of last season, with the host version of Old Man William, the man in black, doing that thing, if you know what I mean, to our William, well, it looks like he could be being kept alive. And what we learned with regards to this data is that it was actually his, stolen from one of his facilities 8 years ago, and he knows that the cartel leaders were paid very handsomely to look after it. Now they're just like, you know, take it up with the people or the woman who stole it from you or whatever. And he's like, well, I would, but she's dead. So it's a she. We know that much. And it's most likely the, like, real Charlotte Hale. The host, William, says he can't decrypt it. No one can. And he doesn't want it moved or disturbed. Now, don't forget that this data is most likely containing all of the data of the people who have entered the park. Not only that, of course, but original data on host. But probably, I might not even be on the ball there. I mean, I'm sure that's the ballpark of the data that William wants access to. But at the same time, let me know if you have any other theories, if you think he meant she as in Dolores, but I think it is more likely Hale. Either way, especially in combination with some of the very brief peeks and teasers we get from the season trailer, Heloris really wants this place. We know it is going to be the entry point to the Valley Beyond. We know she's even there, firing behind her, whatever the heck is going on. So in this moment, he is very insistent, despite the cartel leaders not wanting to sell it to him. So he says, you can sell me this lump of concrete today, or you give it to me tomorrow for free. And that is exactly what happened. So the main cartel guy we were following goes back to his place, and this is where the flies get involved. Now, I believe in one of my trailer breakdowns, I did get into a theory, and this will be brought up a couple of times this particular video, with regards to how Charlotte Hale might be weaponizing these flies. Here, it seems as though that Heloris has now got the ability to literally somehow infiltrate a human's mind, really weirdly, to be able to give them a narrative like that of what we, or well, the humans did to hosts within the park. So this guy gets swarmed with flies, wakes up the next day, and then basically kills his colleagues or fellow cartel members. William basically says you can rest now, and I guess a part of his narrative that was programmed, again, just like how, you know, the people at Delos did that to the narratives of the hosts in the park, he basically ended himself as well, and now William more or less has the park, the cartel wiped out. He has what he needs, albeit that he can't quite access the information that himself and Dolores wants. What I really liked about this cartel leader, the character, and for example Peter later on with Christina, is that they're given this narrative, yet kind of just like how various hosts like Maeve or even Dolores in the previous seasons of Westworld, even though they were given certain narratives, they quite often knew when things weren't quite right. You know, we occasionally had hosts breaking out of their loops on narratives, and this was like what was happening here. Or later on with Peter, this isn't who I am, the things that I'm being made to do, the thing that happened with this cartel leader taking out his fellow cartel guys. He's in distress, but yet he can't quite help but carry out his narrative. And there's even a line for the promo of next episode from Maeve saying she's going to do to you what your kind did to us. So that more or less solidifies the nail in the coffin there. Dolores is basically doing what humans did to hosts in the park, but in the real world. And our first example of this was with this cartel leader, and we get more cases of it with Peter, and God knows how many other people in this place where Christina is living. Now, within the title sequence, that always gives us little bits of clues, but one of the most prominent and something that is echoed throughout this episode is the tower. The tower was heavily featured in the trailers as well. What we can probably assume is that this tower is vital to Dolores' plans, especially this almost human park, and the way that she's turning humans into her own ironic version of hosts, is that it might be like the beacon of all beacons, maybe echoing out the narratives to various humans who have also had their minds infiltrated by flies. And for example, when we have Christina on her way to work, I believe we see that homeless guy saying, "Can you see it? Can you see it?" And he's got like a cardboard drawing or something of the tower. Now, I don't know if the tower is like visible in this version of New York that Christina is in. I don't know if like people are being kind of programmed to somewhat ignore it. But again, just like how various hosts within the earlier seasons of Westworld start to kind of realize the nature of their own reality, right? That's the kind of big thing about Westworld. You know, maybe you should question the nature of your reality. Various people are, such as Peter this episode, maybe that homeless guy, so on, so forth. And they're like, wait, what the hell is going on? When we picked up with Christina, loved, of course, I mean, Westworld can't help themselves with her kind of waking up, you know, again, similar to how we've seen it before. Obviously, we've seen this with other characters as well, such as Maeve, Caleb. Now, she lives with her roommate named Maya, and I like how we had a little bit of a nod to the entrance of Westworld, you know, which color hat are you gonna have? Which color shoes should I pick? Her roommate is more or less really edging her to go out and live her social life, since she spends a lot of it within her apartment. Again, she is almost like questioning the nature of her reality. There's a lot of echoing sentiments there from her trying to write new stories, things that are missing. Maybe I'm not broken, but maybe there's something wrong with the world. A very kind of callback to that of Dolores as well in earlier seasons, yet we still don't know exactly what is going on with Christina here. You know, I could ramble about this forever, and I'm going to try not to, but it's like, I assume this is all a part of Dolores' bigger plan. I mean, it seems as though Christina is living within, should I say, the very same space that Dolores is kind of mapping out with her own real life park. So I really don't know what her bigger game is there with this kind of baseline new version of Dolores, but Christina, if you're still with me, she is basically, as we learn later, a writer, but for NPCs within a video game. We have Enzo, where this was a bit of a flashback. Haven't seen him since years and years and years and years and years ago, since the Vampire Diaries. That was a long, long time ago now. So that took me by surprise. But he was basically saying that people kind of want danger, violence. I might have to find a new writer if you keep on concentrating on things like romance. But again, the story that we do see her initially pitch, yet again, very similar and a bit of an echo to that of Dolores. A girl, late teens, living at home with her father, very similar to Papa Abernathy back in the day, and her living with him back on the old farm in the country, dreaming of a bigger life, excitement, adventure, romance. Now, as things unfold, things get continuously more intriguing. So we have lots and lots of missed calls. She hears a spooky noise outside. She goes outside and there's literally a maze on the floor. Now, I assume that Peter left that there, but I found that super intriguing at the time. But it was almost like this symbolizing point for our new character, Christina, to start really waking up in terms of realizing or questioning the nature of her reality from this moment onwards. Now, the voicemails, and we're going to get into the dialogue with Peter as we go on, but, you know, I know you're out there. I saw what you wrote. Why are you doing this to us? Your game is ruining my life. Now, it's interesting that Peter says it's like the game because, funnily enough, Christina does write stories for NPCs within the game. So I'm now wondering, and this is a bit of reaching theories, if Dolores is actually using people's ideas and pitches like Christina's to use for actual humans within this new park she's building. Now, I doubt that a little bit, but it is interesting that he regards it as a game. But the reason why I think he is identifying the person, so why are you doing this to us? You know, you need to stop. I need you to stop this. Is probably because, as we know, Charlotte Hale, the Dolores, is all behind this. That don't forget that she is a derivative of Dolores herself. She comes from the same code. I mean, I technically know every host is baselined off of her, but quite literally, Dolores was a copy of Dolores. So I'm guessing that people like Peter are mistaking Christina for Dolores herself, if you're still with me. We then get to the point of where Christina actually meets him. He gets to the point of where he is basically threatening her life. He knew that she existed, but he was worried that she wasn't real, but here she is, asking, why are you doing this to us? Now, Peter seems to be aware that there's more than just him. Maybe there's like a whole internet forum here of people saying, look, I'm doing things that aren't me, but I swear, like, this isn't me. Maybe there's something like that going on. That's not really explained just yet, but he does say, you made me do those things. All these people do what you want them to. So again, just like as we see in the trailer, we have Dolores doing a demonstration for Old Man William. Everyone's dancing in the streets. I believe they're actually real people, most likely. Now, this is where, obviously, Teddy comes in to save her. He disappears. I do not know how that happened, because she kind of just blinked and then both of them were gone. He must have just had to drag him really quick, to be honest. I don't know how he comes into it. This is super interesting because despite us being, as I said at the beginning of the video, maybe going towards the general direction of, okay, we're on the ball here, the flies are taking over real humans, they're starting to question the nature of their own decisions, why are they doing this? Really, we know it's because they're on a new narrative from Dolores, but what's Teddy got to do with this? Is this kind of some weird game from Dolores on Christina? Again, in the promo for next episode, she says to this Teddy man, you know, there's something familiar about you. So again, these two are very much so drawn together, just as Dolores and Teddy have always been. And we're going to see that in episode 2. Again, I'm pretty damn sure this is Dolores' world. So she has to be approving whatever's going on here with this new Teddy and new Christina. Now, this all gets to the point of where in Christina's story we have Peter ring her, but he goes to jump off the building. I mean, I could only imagine the turmoil and stress. I mean, imagine if you're just kind of given some NPC commands in your human brain freaking head that you know you're not doing, so you're like questioning what's going on. It only gives you a peek into the stress that I feel like Westworld really demonstrated very well before in previous seasons. Yes, some people just view them as robots, but some of the stuff that happened to them extremely messed up. And now humans are getting a taste of their own medicine, which is exactly the point of Dolores' plan. Now, this is where we pick up with Maeve using the Force to meditate. Now, in the trailers, I was kind of confused by this. Obviously, this episode, it came a bit more clear that we're picking up quite a few years later after season 3. This is also going to probably make sense with how Bernard comes out of Sublime at the end of last season, how long it's been since he kind of actually plugs himself out. So it's around 8 years, if I remember correctly. And now Maeve and Caleb, their time at the end of season 3, where they're looking at almost like the apocalypse happening. In this world, you can do whatever the heck you want. This is quite a while after that. And they've had some adventures since then. And now she's been living off the grid for the past 7-ish years or so. But then as we start to bleed into memories of the ending scenes of Westworld season 3, as we then see Caleb and Maeve somewhat on this, you know, following that moment where they're like leading the resistance or doing their next mission at the very end of Westworld season 3. They kind of go on this covert mission where it looks like they're going to one of the original possibly the original machine, or Rehoboam, if you will, and they destroy it. Like, they continued their mission, making sure that a machine in any part of the world was not able to make decisions or set a narrative loop, if you will, which was a big part of Season 3's overall arc and plan for the human race. But when they set the detonators off, it looks like Caleb possibly received a bullet wound. Now, I believe that this, kind of obviously maybe, but I may be saying the obvious, will be a very big part of Season 4 in general. Because here, they deliberately cut it off as though it looks like Caleb is dying. It looks like he's bleeding out, right? And Maeve is there for him. But clearly, in present day, we see that Caleb has a family. We see that he has a daughter. We see that he has a wife. But I don't know. Something is kind of tugging at my mind here. It's like, why cut it off there? Now, you could get crazy, just like how they've achieved that you can get an Old Man William copied into the Old Man William host. I mean, he's even recalling, parts of his childhood, so clearly they're successful now with, transitioning the human consciousness or transporting it to a host mind. The fidelity has been approved. Now, you could say, what if? Like, what if it's going to be a grand reveal? This is such a crazy idea out there that something shady has happened with Caleb. But I just don't want to go down that road. But at the same time, why were they teasing that he got wounded so bad? I don't know, like, maybe there was more to that story, and it's just simply that they get away, and then, like, as he says later on in the episode, oh, I never truly thought I'd see you again, kind of thing, and they went their separate ways, lived off the grid after the damage they caused, but feel like there's something to Caleb being wounded and Maeve tending to his wound in that moment, where she did something that maybe could be even a surprise to the character that we are seeing this episode, Caleb, in present day. Now, due to her concentration on what was happening here, she cut out the energy for, like, the whole town. This was enough to get the people who were after her, as we learn, to notice her energy spike, and she goes back and proceeds to take him out like the badass that Maeve is. Interestingly, she says, "Who sent you, Colonel Brigham?" because this is actually a character from Westworld. You may even have recognized him, so this was a host. That's how she, gets the memories out of his head to find out who is after her. And this really, again, it almost feels like, despite Halloris is quite the antagonist as what we're dealing with right now, it seems that one of the front-facing forces, or the avatar of Halloris, will be Old Man William this season. I mean, that was kind of obvious from the trailers anyway, but it's interesting to know that, especially given the end of Season 3 with the host room, that she's, like, making loads and loads and loads and loads of hosts, like a host army. She's sending, or should I say, William is sending them in, such as Colonel Brigham. Just interesting to know that they are recreating hosts from the Westworld park to do their real-world dirty work. Now, when she goes back through Colonel Brigham's memories, this is where she identifies that it is William. She was quite spooked by this. There's definitely some big moves being made on behalf of Halloris by the host William, because don't forget that host William is a very, or just William in general, sorry, a very big player in the real world. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we pick up with Aaron Paul's Caleb. I am very, I could say that times 1,000, happy that Aaron Paul is a part of Westworld. Big fan of his work. Here, he's back to work. We get a bit of a taste for the world now, post 7 years after when Rehoboam went down. We have a little bit of a commentary on that from one of the other workers, just saying, you're cashing in on that overtime, eh? 7 years ago, it would have been robots working. Now, the biggest part of what he says, and this is interesting, is that the way I look at it, that inside machine that they blew up didn't tell us who we could be. It told us who we already were. Now, this, I think, rubs Caleb slightly the wrong way, because it's like, you really believe that? And he replies, well, let me put it this way as well. Like, has your life really changed since destroying those machines? And, we have some parallel shots as well of, like, Caleb looking over the city like he did in Season 2. But I would argue his life has changed, because that was meant to be quite the question. But yes, he's got a family now. He can actually get work, unlike Rehoboam restricted him, quite literally. Do you remember the interview he tried to call to? But, like, he was already in a certain category that Rehoboam projected for him, that he couldn't possibly excel or climb the ladder at all. And then it turns out that Caleb has a kid, he has a home, he has a family. He hears a noise outside and he's really spooked about what it could be. Turns out maybe it was something, but his wife just kind of thinks that he's consistently paranoid because of the stuff in his past, all of the things as well that we probably haven't even seen that him and Maeve went on to do after the very end of Westworld Season 3. Granted, we've only seen one memory of when he got wounded. You have to think about all the other little trials and tribulations they could have gone through. And this is when his daughter drops the bear out the window. She goes outside, and there's another host doing William's dirty work. A host, I believe, from the very early seasons of Westworld. Now, very, very luckily, Maeve was there. Very convenient, if you ask me, because that guy could have come on any night of the year before Maeve got back. Maeve stabs him, obviously, with a katana wielded. I love Maeve with a katana. Now, this dialogue is very interesting. It goes back to the kind of ambiguous memory flashback of their covert mission. Like, what really happened at the end of that? You could just say, oh, he got patched up and he survived. But is it really going to be that simple? We don't know. He says, I was sure I was never going to see you again. Why did you think? Why were you sure that you were never going to see her again? Is it just because she said, you won't see me again, I'm going off the grid? Or is it something more than that? Like, I'm very, very, very intrigued into this missing gap of time, if you will. So she says that William is back at it. So back at what specifically? That is another interesting factor. Of course, you could say he's back up to doing whatever they were trying to do 7 years ago. But it implies that William maybe went quiet for a while. Now, we have some scenes between him and his wife. He's saying yes to leave. I'm the one who brought this on us, and I'm the one who has to end it. And she's not too happy with him leaving. One issue I had with this is that and like, for all we know, William could just literally send a few hosts to threaten Caleb's family, his daughter and his wife, send a message in their little kind of see-through phones and say, look, if you don't get back here for us to basically execute you, we'll kill your wife and daughter. William is more than capable of doing something as horrific as that, or a threat as grand as that. So I would have liked to have seen them saying, like, you have to get out of here, we're gonna have to relocate you, I'm so sorry, but I'm also going to leave to prevent you being in danger so we can go back to our family home. I know maybe there's an excuse for this, but I don't know. If William really wanted Caleb dead, all he has to now do is go back to the family home. Yes, they did acknowledge that he only wants me, but if William wants Caleb that bad, well, threaten the family, and thus Caleb will come back and give himself up, right? Like, I just felt like they should have maybe moved the family, is my only nitpick with regards to that. Now, Caleb has almost gone into, like, resistance leader mode at the end of this episode. He's got the guys downstairs. He says, you're right, you know the drill. I knew this day was always coming. Like, did you? Okay, because he said, you know, as soon as you stopped running, everyone else started to catch up. So what, like, did you hear something? Did you know that she stopped running? Like, maybe I'm like reading too into that. The big thing is we don't have a lot of context. There's quite a time gap here, 8 years. What happened in those 8 years? But I'm gonna stop rambling now. So give me your ideas down in the comments below. How do you think this is going to serve to whatever, like, think about it. Each season of Westworld usually goes pretty big with whatever the grand plan is. I do believe we have a flavor and a taste of what the grand plan is, and that is, of course, Dolores' desire to do to humanity what humanity did to hosts, plus the next evolution and everything like that. However, what is the kind of thing behind the curtains? What is the thing that is going to make us go, you know, towards the end of this season? Do you think there was more to the flashback with Maeve and Caleb seemingly dying, but he seems okay in present day? But you know what? Like, I know some people say, oh yeah, I've stopped watching Westworld in season 2. I really enjoyed this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I really did. I'm down for this season. I'm down with everyone being back. An 8-year time gap. Bring it on. So if you want to join the ride with me with recaps, reviews, and breakdowns just like this one, do subscribe down below. Hit the like button. That really does help me out. I really appreciate that. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to love you and leave you. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you fellow hosts and humans in the next video. Goodbye.